The stars stretched endlessly beyond the observation deck of the UESS Pathfinder, humanity's first true deep space exploration vessel. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her palm against the cool glass, watching distant galaxies spiral in the darkness. After 200 years of dreaming, humans had finally mastered faster-than-light travel. The quantum fold drives had opened the universe to them, and the Pathfinder was charting routes through the Perseus Arm, searching for new worlds, new resources, and perhaps even new friends among the stars. Sarah turned away from the window and walked back to her station in the xenolinguistics lab. Her team had picked up something unusual 3 days ago. Encrypted transmissions, clearly artificial, bouncing between points in deep space. The signals were sophisticated, far more advanced than anything humanity had created. It was proof that they were not alone. "Dr. Chen, you need to see this," called out Marcus Rivera, her lead cryptographer. His face looked pale in the blue light of his computer screens. Sarah hurried over. "Did you crack the encryption?" Marcus nodded slowly. His hands shook slightly as he pulled up the translated documents. "I wish we hadn't." Over the next hour, Sarah read through the files with growing horror. The transmissions came from something called the Galactic Concordat, a coalition of 47 alien species that had been exploring and governing this part of the galaxy for thousands of years. The files contained procedures, protocols, and voting records. But one document made Sarah's blood run cold: the Juvenile Species Protocol. According to the document, the Concordat had a specific way of dealing with new civilizations that developed space travel. They watched these young species carefully, monitoring their development from hidden observation posts. When a species achieved faster-than-light travel, the Concordat gave them 50 years to prove themselves worthy of joining the galactic community. But most species failed the evaluation. Sarah scrolled through the voting records with shaking hands. Species after species, judged and found wanting, too aggressive, too unstable, too resource-hungry, too unpredictable. The Concordat's solution was clinical and efficient: complete extermination. They called it containment. They destroyed the species' homeworld and all their colonies in coordinated strikes, erasing them from existence before they could become a threat to the established galactic order. "Keep reading," Marcus said quietly. "It gets worse." Sarah found the Earth file. Her heart sank. Humanity had been under observation for 200 years. There was a Concordat monitoring station hidden in Earth's Oort cloud, far beyond Neptune, watching everything. They had recorded humanity's wars, environmental destruction, nuclear weapons, and aggressive expansion into their own solar system. The file was filled with notes marked in red, warning flags about human behavior. Then Sarah found the evaluation schedule. Earth's 50-year deadline was 3 months away. The preliminary vote was already complete. 89% of Concordat species favored containment measures for humanity. In 3 months, unless something changed, the Concordat would send their fleets to destroy every human world. 7 billion people on Earth and another 2 billion scattered across Mars, the moon bases and the outer colonies. All of it would burn. Sarah's fingers moved frantically across her console. She opened a priority channel to Admiral Marcus Webb, the Pathfinder's commanding officer and the highest-ranking military official in human space. 20 minutes later, Sarah stood in the Admiral's ready room. Webb was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many conflicts on Earth. He listened in silence as Sarah explained everything. When she finished, he sat back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. 3 months, he said finally. "They're going to kill us in 3 months." "The vote isn't final yet," Sarah offered weakly. "Maybe we could contact them." Explain what?" Webb interrupted. "That we're not dangerous." "Doctor, they've been watching us for 2 centuries. They saw every war we fought, every weapon we built. They know exactly who we are." He stood up and walked to his own window, looking out at the stars, and they decided we're too dangerous to live. Sarah felt tears burning in her eyes. "What do we do?" Webb was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to face her, and his expression had changed. There was something cold and calculating in his eyes now. Something that reminded Sarah why this man had risen to command Earth's deepest space missions. "We don't wait to be judged," Webb said. "We act first." Within 48 hours, Admiral Webb had sent encrypted messages to every major government on Earth. The response was unanimous. If the Concordat wanted to see if humanity was dangerous, Humanity would show them exactly what humans did when cornered. The United Defense Council convened in an emergency session. Military leaders, scientists, and politicians gathered in secure facilities across Earth and the colonies. They studied the intelligence that Sarah's team continued to intercept and decrypt. They learned about the Concordate's military bases, their communication networks, their trade routes and supply lines. Most importantly, they learned about the Concordate's way of warfare. The alien species fought with honor and tradition. They declared their intentions before battle. They avoided civilian targets. They followed thousands of years of established rules about how civilized species conducted war. They believed in fair warning, proportional response, and diplomatic solutions. Admiral Webb smiled grimly when he read these reports. "They fight like gentlemen," he said to his assembled commanders. That's their weakness. The plan came together quickly. Operation Revelation would be humanity's answer to the Concordate's judgment. 47 simultaneous strikes across Concordate space. No warning, no declaration, no mercy. Every available human warship was quietly repositioned. The new quantum-fold drives meant ships could jump across vast distances in hours instead of years. Humanity converted cargo vessels into missile platforms. They loaded ancient nuclear weapons from Earth's arsenals, weapons that had been scheduled for destruction decades ago. They built new weapons too: kinetic bombardment systems, laser arrays, and experimental nanite swarms that could tear apart ships from the inside. Sarah Chen found herself working alongside the military planners. They needed her team's knowledge of Concordate languages and communication protocols. Every night she lay awake thinking about what they were planning. Was this right? Were they becoming the monsters the Concordate feared? But then she would remember the voting records. 89% in favor of extermination. 7 billion people on Earth who had no idea they were 3 months away from death. Admiral Webb visited the xenolinguistics lab on the last day before the operation launched. He found Sarah staring at a holographic display showing the Concordate's home systems. "Having doubts, Doctor?" he asked. "Constantly," Sarah admitted. "We're about to start a war with 47 alien civilizations. We might lose. We'll definitely kill thousands, maybe millions, and we're doing it without even trying to talk to them first." Webb nodded. "I know. This decision will haunt me for the rest of my life. But I keep coming back to one simple fact. They already decided to kill us. The trial already happened. We were found guilty. The only question now is whether we die quietly or fight for our survival." He pulled up a star chart, showing Earth at the center with lines extending outward to 47 targets. In 6 hours, these ships launch. Humanity stops being the prey and becomes the predator. The galaxy wanted to see if we're dangerous? Webb's eyes were hard as steel. Let's show them exactly what humanity does when cornered. The Pathfinder's crew watched their chronometers count down. Throughout human space, thousands of military personnel prepared for the largest coordinated operation in human history. They didn't know if they would win. They only knew they were tired of being judged by species who had never given them a chance. The countdown reached 0. 47 human strike groups vanished into quantum fold space, racing toward their targets at impossible speeds. The galaxy had been watching humanity for 2 centuries, studying them, preparing to destroy them. The galaxy had no idea that humanity had been studying right back, and humanity struck first. The monitoring station in Earth's Oort cloud had been watching humanity for 200 years. It was a massive structure, hidden in the dark space beyond Neptune, filled with alien scientists and military observers recording every signal from Earth. They had watched human civilization grow from primitive steam engines to quantum computers. They had studied human wars, art, music, and philosophy. They knew everything about humanity. What they didn't know was that humanity had found them. Strike Group Alpha materialized from quantum fold space just 3,000 kilometers from the station. The alien crew had exactly 17 seconds to realize what was happening before the first missiles arrived. The station's commander managed to send out a single panicked transmission before nuclear fire turned the massive facility into expanding gas and debris. No warnings. No negotiation. No survivors. Across Concordate space, 46 other human strike groups executed their missions with similar precision. Captain Elena Vasquez led Wolfpack Squadron against a major communication relay in the Draco sector. Her 6 ships dropped out of fold space, launched their payloads, and disappeared again before the Concordat defense systems even registered their presence. The relay was a beautiful structure, a work of art as much as technology, built by the Shakara species over 300 years. It maintained real-time communication across 12 star systems, allowing the Concordat to coordinate their civilization. Elena felt a moment of regret as her missiles turned it into scrap metal and fire. Then she thought about Earth, about her daughter playing in their garden in California, and the regret vanished. The Concordat had 3 months to kill her child. Elena would burn their entire infrastructure to ash to prevent it. Across the galaxy, human strike groups targeted the things that made civilization work. Not military bases, not warships, but the boring and essential systems that keep empires running. Communication relays went silent. Trade routes became death traps as human ships appeared without warning, destroyed cargo vessels, and vanished. Fuel depots exploded. Shipyards burned. Data centers were hit with electromagnetic pulses that erased centuries of records. The Concordat tried to respond, but they discovered a terrifying problem. They couldn't communicate quickly enough. Their real-time network was shattered. Messages now took days or weeks to travel between systems using conventional faster-than-light travel. By the time warnings reached their destinations, the human ships had already struck and disappeared. Chancellor Trevennik of the Concordat High Council stood in the emergency session chamber, his 3-fingered hands gripping the podium. Around him, holographic representatives of 47 species flickered and distorted due to communication delays. "This is unprecedented," Trevennik said, his translator rendering his clicking speech into common galactic standard. "A juvenile species has attacked us without any declaration of war, without demands, without even identifying themselves. We know who they are," growled Ambassador Krell of the Vorgash Empire. "The humans. It must be them. This coincides exactly with their evaluation deadline." "But how?" asked Representative Mira, her crystalline form reflecting the emergency lights. "They only achieved faster-than-light travel 2 years ago. How do they know about the protocol? How did they find our infrastructure?" Dr. Verath, the Concordat's chief military analyst, projected tactical displays into the center of the chamber. "I've analyzed 17 attack patterns. The humans are using tactics we've never encountered. They don't follow any civilized rules of warfare." He showed footage from a trade convoy attack. "Watch this. 3 human ships appear, destroy the convoy, but then 1 ship remains behind, pretending to be damaged debris. When our rescue vessels arrive, it attacks them too. They're using deception, ambush tactics, psychological warfare. They target civilians, logistics, communication. They're not trying to defeat our military. They're trying to create chaos and fear." "Barbaric," spat Ambassador Krell. "Effective," Verath replied coldly. "In 3 weeks, they've done more economic damage than the last 2 Concordat wars combined. 16 species have had their trade networks completely disrupted. 4 species are experiencing food shortages, and we still haven't managed to engage them in a single proper battle." What the Concordat didn't understand was that humanity had studied them for weeks before striking. Sarah Chen's team had decoded thousands of Concordat military documents, and what they found was shocking. The Concordat species fought wars the same way for millennia. They had rules, traditions, and expectations about how civilized beings conducted warfare. Admiral Webb had thrown every single one of those rules out the window. Humans didn't announce their attacks. They didn't avoid civilian targets if those targets supported military operations. They didn't give their enemies time to evacuate or prepare defenses. They hit fast, hit hard, and vanished before anyone could respond. But humanity did something even more devious. Sarah Chen's team began broadcasting messages across Concordat space, sending them on every frequency, in every language. The messages contained the files about the juvenile species protocol, showing how the Concordat systematically exterminated young civilizations. Many of the 47 Concordat species didn't know about the protocol. It was a secret kept by the High Council. When the truth came out, it created chaos. 12 species withdrew from the Concordat military alliances immediately. "We never agreed to genocide," their leaders declared. "We thought the Concordat represented civilization, not butchery." The remaining species split between those who wanted to negotiate with humanity and those who wanted total war. The Concordat was tearing itself apart from the inside. Captain Vasquez led her squadron on their 8th mission, targeting a Concordat fuel depot in the Kepler system. Her crews were exhausted. They'd been running combat operations for 3 weeks straight, jumping from system to system, never staying in one place long enough for the enemy to find them. Approaching target, her navigator reported. Depot is heavily defended. 20 warships, orbital defense platforms, the works. Elena smiled grimly. Good. We're not hitting the depot. Her ships scattered across the system, each targeting a different asteroid. They attached small quantum fold drives to the rocks, programmed simple courses, and retreated. Then, one by one, the asteroids vanished into fold space and reappeared, traveling at relativistic speeds, aimed directly at the depot. The Concordate defenders tried to shoot down the incoming asteroids, but you can't stop a mountain moving at a significant fraction of light speed. When the first asteroid hit the depot, the explosion was visible from 3 planets. The fuel storage tanks detonated in a chain reaction that destroyed the depot, the defense platforms, and 5 of the defending warships. Elena watched the fireball expand on her tactical display. Relativistic kill vehicles, she said to her bridge crew, used to be theoretical on Earth. Now we use them to throw rocks at aliens. Hell of a universe we're living in. Her communications officer looked up nervously. Captain, I'm picking up a distress signal from one of the damaged Concordate ships. They're requesting rescue. Elena felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. The old rules of warfare said you helped enemy wounded, but these were the same species that had voted to exterminate humanity. They'd planned to kill her daughter, kill everyone she'd ever known without a second thought. Mark their position and include it in our withdrawal report, Elena said finally. Let the Concordate send their own rescue. We're not here to save them. We're here to make them regret ever threatening Earth. The Concordate High Council met again, 7 weeks after the first human attacks. The holographic displays now showed a galaxy in chaos. Trade had collapsed. 3 species had declared independence from the Concordate. 2 species were on the verge of civil war, and still the human attacks continued with no sign of slowing. We must negotiate, pleaded Representative Mira. Send diplomats to Earth, offer peace terms. Never, snarled Ambassador Krell. We will crush these primitives. We will show them why the Concordate has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Chancellor Trevnik looked older than his 400 years. The humans aren't fighting like primitives. They're fighting like apex predators. They studied us. They learned our weaknesses, and now they're using everything we are against us. Dr. Vereth brought up new intelligence reports. It gets worse. We captured a human pilot yesterday. Lieutenant James Park shot down over Vorgash Prime. Ambassador Krell's people interrogated him. And? Trevnik prompted. He was polite. Friendly, even. He quoted ancient Earth philosophy, discussed art and music with his guards, and played strategy games with them. He's educated, thoughtful, and completely committed to humanity's cause. He told Krell that humanity had no choice. We created the situation where their only option was to become the monsters we feared. Trevnik felt a chill run through his body. What have we awakened? Vereth's image flickered. Sir, we've been asking the wrong question. We asked if humans were dangerous. We should have asked if we were prepared for a species that treats war the same way they treat survival. Because that's what this is to them. Not a war. A fight for existence, and humans will do absolutely anything to survive. Across Concordate space, species that had voted to exterminate humanity now whispered new names for Earth's people. 3 months into the war, the Concordate finally managed to organize a coordinated military response. Fleet Admiral Thonrak, a veteran of 7 galactic conflicts, assembled the largest battle fleet in Concordate history. 300 warships from 12 different species, all converging on the Kepler system where human activity had been most concentrated. This time we do it properly, Thonrak announced to his assembled captains. Formal battle lines, coordinated fire patterns, by-the-book tactics that have won wars for 10,000 years. These humans will learn that there's a reason the Concordate rules the galaxy. The fleet arrived in the Kepler system in perfect formation. Ships arranged by size and capability, smaller vessels screening the larger battleships. Support craft positioned precisely according to tactical doctrine. It was beautiful, a display of military precision that only came from centuries of tradition and experience. The human response confused everyone. 17 human ships appeared scattered across the system, nowhere near each other. They didn't form lines. They didn't coordinate their positions. They just appeared randomly and started attacking from different angles. What are they doing? Thonrak demanded. There's no pattern, no formation. It's complete chaos. His tactical officer studied the displays nervously. Sir, I think chaos is the pattern. One human ship accelerated directly toward a concordate battleship at maximum speed. The battleship's crew prepared for a collision, bringing defensive systems online. At the last second, the human ship spun sideways, fired every weapon it had into the battleship's engines and dove away. The battleship lost power and started drifting. Another human ship didn't fire any weapons at all. It just flew through the concordate formation at high speed, broadcasting electronic warfare signals that scrambled communication systems. 6 concordate ships accidentally fired on each other when their targeting systems went haywire. A third human ship appeared to be fleeing the battle, damaged and trailing atmosphere. 2 concordate cruisers broke formation to pursue and finish it off. The damaged ship led them straight into an asteroid field where 5 more human ships were waiting in ambush. Thonrak watched his beautiful, organized fleet turn into a chaotic mess. Human ships moved in ways that seemed random but were devastatingly effective. They broke every rule of proper naval combat. They abandoned damaged positions instantly instead of fighting honorably. They focused fire on the weakest targets instead of engaging ships their own size. They used the battlefield terrain, the system's planets and asteroids in ways the Concordate had never considered tactical. After 3 hours, Thonrak ordered a withdrawal. He'd lost 40 ships. The humans had lost 3. How? He asked his officers afterward. How did 17 ships defeat 300? They didn't fight us ship to ship, his tactical officer explained. They fought us idea against idea. Our ideas are 10,000 years old. Theirs are 3 months old and evolving every day. Dr. Varath presented his analysis to the Concordate High Council. The holographic display showed detailed breakdowns of human capabilities, and each one was terrifying. Speed, Varath began. Human ships are smaller than ours, but significantly faster. Their quantum fold drives can jump more frequently with less cooldown time. In any engagement, they can dictate when and where the battle happens. He pulled up another display. Adaptability. We've recovered several destroyed human ships. Each one contained reverse-engineered concordate technology. They're taking our weapons, our shields, our sensors, and adapting them to their needs in weeks. It took the Concordate decades to develop most of this technology. Humans are learning it in the middle of a war. Representative Mira's crystalline form flickered with distress. How is that possible? Human lifespans are short, Varath explained. Only 80 to 100 years. This creates a species-wide urgency. They don't have time to waste. When they encounter a problem, they solve it immediately or die. This has made them incredibly efficient learners. Chancellor Trevennik leaned forward. What else? Endurance, Varath continued. Human crews operate in conditions we consider biologically impossible. They work 18-hour shifts in high-stress combat environments. They consume stimulants that would kill most concordate species just to stay awake longer. Their bodies produce adrenaline, a chemical that lets them ignore injuries and exhaustion during emergencies. We're not fighting a military. We're fighting a species that treats warfare like an endurance sport. But the most disturbing factor was creativity. Every single engagement with humans has been different, Varath explained. They've used asteroids as weapons, fake distress signals as bait, electronic warfare, psychological warfare, even civilian ships loaded with explosives. In the Battle of Kepler Station yesterday, they strapped fold drives to asteroids and used them as relativistic missiles. Before that, they hacked our communication network and sent false orders to our fleet. Last week, they painted one of their warships to look like a concordate vessel and sailed right through our defense perimeter. Ambassador Krell slammed his massive fist on the table. These tactics are dishonorable. They violate every principle of civilized warfare. Yes, Varath agreed. And they're winning. Throughout concordate space, species began to withdraw from the conflict. 12 had already left. Now 8 more announced they would no longer participate in military operations against humanity. They'd seen the casualty reports. They'd heard the stories from survivors. The humans weren't just winning battles. They were traumatizing the soldiers who fought them. Lieutenant James Park sat in his cell on Vorgash Prime, playing chess with his guard, a young Kelran named Varathnik. The Kelran were a noble species, tall and elegant, with strict codes of honor. Ambassador Kelran himself had come to interview the human prisoner, expecting to find a savage barbarian. Instead, he found someone who quoted ancient Earth philosophers and played chess at a master level. "Why do you fight us?" Kelrin asked as Park considered his next move. "The Concordat only wanted to evaluate your species. If you had proven peaceful, you would have been welcomed." Park moved his knight and looked up at Kelrin. "Tell me, Ambassador, how many species has the Concordat exterminated under this evaluation protocol?" "That's classified," Kelrin replied. "I'll tell you, 37. In the last 2,000 years alone." Park leaned back in his chair. "Your people judge species for being dangerous, and your solution is to kill them. You created a system where the only way for a young species to survive is to prove you right about them being dangerous. That's the paradox you created." "We were trying to protect the galaxy," Kelrin protested. "From what? From species like us?" Park smiled sadly. "Ambassador, we're teachers and artists and farmers who were forced to become soldiers because you decided our existence was a threat. We didn't want this war. We wanted to explore the stars, find friends among the stars, learn from civilizations older than ours. But you took that choice away from us." Kelrin was quiet for a long moment. "So you struck first." "We struck first to survive," Park corrected. "There's a difference. If the Concordat had come to us peacefully, if you'd offered friendship instead of judgment, we'd have welcomed you. But you came with clipboards and evaluation forms already planning our funerals. You can't blame us for fighting back." Park moved his queen across the board. "Checkmate, Ambassador." Kelrin stared at the board, then at Park. "You're not what I expected." "No one ever is," Park replied. "That's the problem with judging species before you meet them. You see monsters in the shadows when all you needed to do was turn on the lights." The conversation haunted Kelrin. He reported back to the Concordat Council, describing the intelligent, thoughtful human he'd interrogated. It didn't match the image of humans as savage primitives. Nothing about this war matched Concordat expectations. Admiral Webb reviewed the latest intelligence reports with growing concern. The Concordat was losing ships, losing territory, and losing political cohesion. 12 more species had withdrawn from military operations. The Concordat economy was collapsing under the strain of the war and the disrupted trade networks. Humanity was winning, but Webb had been a soldier long enough to know that winning was when the enemy became most dangerous. A cornered animal was unpredictable, and the Concordat was definitely cornered. "Sir, we've intercepted coded transmissions from the Concordat High Council to their military research facilities," reported Commander Sarah Chen, who'd been promoted to naval intelligence. "They're accessing something called the Stellar Purge Array." Webb felt his blood run cold. "Define that." Chen pulled up the decoded files. "It's an ancient weapons system, built thousands of years ago during the Concordat's founding wars. Platforms that can destabilize stars, trigger supernovas. They were supposed to be dismantled after the wars ended, but according to these files, they kept them, just in case. Just in case they needed to sterilize entire solar systems," Webb finished. He stared at the star chart showing Earth, the colonies, all of human space. "How many platforms?" "Enough to hit every human world simultaneously," Chen replied quietly. "They're talking about mutual destruction. If they can't beat us conventionally, they'll take us out completely and rebuild afterward." Webb called an emergency meeting of the Earth Defense Council. The Concordat High Council chamber had never been so quiet. 47 holographic representatives stared at the star chart Admiral Webb had broadcast. 47 worlds marked for destruction. 47 civilizations held hostage by a species they'd planned to exterminate just months ago. Chancellor Trevennik looked at each representative in turn. Some appeared angry, their forms flickering with agitation. Others looked terrified. A few seemed resigned, as if they'd expected this moment since the war began. "We need to verify this claim," Ambassador Krell growled. "The humans are bluffing. They don't have the resources to threaten all our homeworlds simultaneously." Dr. Vereth pulled up sensor data from across Concordat space. "I've been analyzing anomalies near our core systems for the past 6 weeks. Small unexplained quantum signatures. Objects in orbit that our scanners can't quite identify. I thought they were sensor glitches." He paused. "They weren't glitches. The humans have been seeding weapons platforms around our most important worlds for months. While we were looking for their warships, they were positioning doomsday weapons in our backyards." "How?" Representative Mira's crystalline form pulsed with distress. "We have defensive networks, monitoring systems. How did they get past everything? Because we were looking for threats that matched our understanding of warfare, Verath explained. The humans didn't send warships or large installations. They sent small, stealthed platforms that looked like space debris or natural objects. They've been using our own monitoring station data against us. They knew where our sensors looked and where they didn't. Ambassador Krell slammed his fist down, the sound echoing through the chamber. Then we activate the stellar purge array immediately. If we're all going to die, we take them with us, no. Several representatives shouted simultaneously. Representative Mira spoke urgently. That's exactly what the humans expect us to do. They're counting on our pride and fear. But think about what we're discussing. Total mutual extinction. The end of 48 civilizations. Billions of lives for what? Because we tried to judge another species and they refused to be victims? They attacked us, Krell roared. We attacked them first, said a quiet voice. Representative Shalek of the Vrik species spoke for the first time in the session. The Viriks were the oldest species in the Concordat, the civilization that had founded the coalition 10,000 years ago. When they spoke, everyone listened. The juvenile species protocol was our creation, Shalek continued. We made it after our own species nearly destroyed itself in wars of expansion. We were young once, aggressive and frightened. We built weapons that could crack planets. We killed billions of our own people before we learned wisdom. When we finally achieved peace and met other species, we swore we would never allow another young civilization to threaten the galaxy the way we once did. The chamber was absolutely silent. But in our fear of the past, we became the monsters we once were, Shalek said. We judge species for aggression by threatening them with extinction. We test them for violence by pointing guns at their children. The humans didn't corrupt themselves. We corrupted them. We created the exact situation that forced them to become what we feared. Chancellor Trevnik felt the weight of millennia pressing down on him. What do we do? Before anyone could answer, alarms blared throughout the chamber. A priority military channel opened showing Fleet Admiral Thonrak. Council, we have a situation, the Admiral reported. Admiral Corvin has gone rogue. He's taken his battle group and is heading for the Sol system. He's activated the stellar purge platforms targeting Earth without authorization. The Council erupted in chaos. Stop him, Trevnik ordered. We can't, Thonrak replied grimly. He's cut all communication and his ships are already in quantum fold. They'll reach Earth in 6 hours. Dr. Sarah Chen was in the Earth Defense Command Center when the alarm sounded. She watched the tactical display as Concordat ships appeared on long-range sensors, heading directly for Sol at maximum speed. The ship's energy signatures indicated they were charging weapons capable of triggering solar destabilization. How long until they're in firing range? She asked. 4 hours, replied the tactical officer. His voice shook. Once they fire, we have maybe 30 minutes before the sun starts to go unstable. Admiral Webb appeared on the command screen from his flagship. Execute Operation Checkmate. All platforms activate and prepare to fire. Around 47 Concordat homeworlds, the hidden weapons platforms came online. Energy signatures that had been dormant suddenly blazed across every sensor in Concordat space. Each platform was small, but they were positioned perfectly. One shot, and they could trigger planet-killing explosions or orbital bombardments that would devastate entire worlds. The message was clear. Humanity was ready to follow through on Webb's threat. On the Concordat Council, representatives watched in horror as their homeworlds came under direct threat. Cities, forests, oceans, all the places where their children played and their ancestors rested. All of it could be ash in minutes if Admiral Webb gave the order. Contact Webb, Trevnik ordered. Tell him we didn't authorize Corvin's attack. Tell him we're trying to stop it. The communication channel opened. Admiral Webb appeared and his face was hard as stone. Chancellor, your rogue admiral will reach Earth in 3 hours and 40 minutes. I don't care if this was authorized or not. If Earth burns, the Concordat burns with it. Every single world. Please, Trevnik begged. And he'd never begged anyone for anything in his 400 years of life. Give us time to stop him. You have 3 hours, Webb replied. Starting now. The channel closed. Fleet Admiral Thonrak sent every available ship racing after Corvin's battle group. They couldn't match his head start, but they could maybe catch him before he reached firing range. Every minute counted. Meanwhile, Sarah Chen worked frantically with her team trying to find a solution. Can we evacuate Earth in 3 hours? She asked. No, replied the logistics officer. We'd need weeks to evacuate even a fraction of the population. And where would they go? If Earth is destroyed, The ecological collapse would make Mars and the moon stations uninhabitable within months. On concordant worlds, civilians watched the news in terror. Their governments told them everything. 47 worlds held hostage. A rogue admiral trying to destroy Earth. The humans ready to retaliate and end everything. Parents held their children. Lovers said goodbye. Ancient civilizations that had survived 10,000 years of history faced the possibility of ending because of one species' pride and fear. Ambassador Kelran stood in his office on the Kelran homeworld, looking out at the city where he'd been born. He thought about Lieutenant James Park, the human prisoner who played chess and quoted philosophy. Park had been right. The Concordat had created this situation by judging species as threats and trying to eliminate them preemptively. We deserve this, Kelran whispered to himself. But did his children deserve it? Did the billions of innocent people across Concordat space deserve to die for their leaders' mistakes? He opened a secure channel to the Concordat Council. I have an idea. 2 hours remained. A new ship appeared on Earth's sensors. Not a warship, a diplomatic vessel, broadcasting peaceful intentions on every frequency. It approached slowly, making no aggressive moves. This is Ambassador Kelran of the Concordat, came the transmission. I'm authorized to negotiate. Please let me speak with your leaders. Admiral Webb authorized the communication. Within minutes, Kelran's holographic image appeared in the Earth Defense Command Center, surrounded by world leaders and military commanders. We didn't authorize Corvin's attack, Kelran said immediately. The Council wants peace, but we're running out of time to stop him, and I know you don't trust us, so I'm here to offer something else. He pulled up technical schematics. These are the codes to disable the stellar purge platforms throughout Concordat space. All of them. Give me access to your systems and I'll shut down the platforms targeting your worlds. No more doomsday weapons. No more mutual destruction. And in return, Webb asked suspiciously, contact Lieutenant Park, Kelran said. He's still my prisoner on Vorgash Prime. Ask him if I'm trustworthy. I've spent weeks talking with him, learning about humanity. I believe him when he says you only wanted peace. I believe we created this war through our own fear. Let me help end it. Webb looked at Sarah Chen. She nodded and opened a channel to Vorgash Prime. Lieutenant James Park appeared on screen, still in his cell. He smiled when he saw Kelran. Ambassador, you're really doing this? I'm trying to, Kelran replied. Tell them they can trust me. Park looked at Admiral Webb. Sir, I've played chess with Ambassador Kelran every day for 3 months. I've debated philosophy with him, discussed our respective cultures, argued about the nature of honor and duty. He's a good person trapped in a bad system. If he says he wants to help, he means it. Webb made his decision. Give him access to our quantum communication systems. If this is a trick, we still have our platforms around Concordat worlds. Kelran worked frantically, transmitting deactivation codes to the stellar purge platforms throughout the galaxy. One by one, the ancient weapons went dark. The sword hanging over both civilizations slowly disappeared, but Admiral Corvin's ships continued toward Earth. 5 years after the war ended, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in what had once been the Concordat High Council chamber. The room had been renamed the Galactic Assembly Hall, and it looked different now. Where once only 47 species had seats, there were now spaces for hundreds of civilizations, including newly contacted species and those that had been hiding from the Concordat for centuries. The humans had insisted on that change during negotiations. No more exclusive club deciding the fate of the galaxy. Everyone got a voice. Elena looked around at the assembled representatives, feeling the weight of her new role. She'd been a warship captain, leading attacks against these very species just 5 years ago. Now she was Earth's chief ambassador, teaching diplomacy instead of warfare. Life was strange. The Treaty of Terran Ascension had changed the galaxy in ways no one expected. The Juvenile Species Protocol was abolished completely, its records published for all to see. 37 extinct civilizations were memorialized, their stories told as a warning about the dangers of fear and prejudice. The Concordat paid substantial reparations to humanity, helping rebuild the infrastructure damaged in the war and funding human expansion into new territories. Most importantly, humanity had a permanent seat on the new Galactic Assembly, not as subjects awaiting judgment, but as equal partners with full voting rights. But the galaxy hadn't accepted this easily. 23 species had left the assembly entirely, refusing to work alongside humans. They formed their own coalition, the Free Stars Pact, dedicated to preserving traditional values and keeping humanity contained within certain borders. They didn't attack, but they made it clear humans weren't welcome in their territories. 11 other species had formed military alliances specifically designed to counter human expansion. They called themselves the Defensive League, though everyone knew they were really preparing for the possibility of another war with Earth. But 8 species had surprised everyone by petitioning to join Earth's sphere of influence. They were smaller civilizations that had been minor members of the old Concordat, often ignored or dismissed. They saw humanity's aggressive protection of its own interests and thought, maybe these newcomers will stand up for us too. The Viriks, the ancient species that founded the original Concordat, had stayed. Representative Shalek worked closely with the humans, helping bridge cultural gaps and translate 10,000 years of galactic history into terms humans could understand. Dr. Sarah Chen had left military service after the war and founded the Institute for Interspecies Understanding. Her team worked tirelessly to teach humans about alien cultures and aliens about human nature. She gave lectures across the galaxy, always emphasizing the same message: fear and ignorance caused the war. Understanding and communication could prevent the next one. She stood in her office at the Institute, preparing for a lecture on Concordat history, when Admiral Marcus Webb appeared at her door. "Admiral," Sarah said, surprised. "I thought you'd retired." Webb smiled tiredly. He looked older than his 70 years. Gray hair turned white, lines carved deep into his face. "I did retire, 5 years ago, but I can never really leave it behind, can I?" The war, Sarah understood. She had nightmares too. Images of ships exploding, of worlds held hostage, of being one decision away from galactic extinction. "You saved humanity," she said softly. "I almost destroyed it," Webb countered. "I gambled everything on a threat I wasn't sure we could follow through on. If the Concordat had called my bluff, if they'd fired on Earth before we could respond, billions would have died." He sat heavily in a chair. "I still wonder if there was another way. Something I missed." "There wasn't," Sarah said firmly. "I've studied those months from every angle. The Concordat had already decided to kill us. We had 3 months before they executed that decision. Every option that involved peaceful negotiation required time we didn't have. You did what you had to do." "Doesn't make it easier to sleep," Webb admitted. On the Kelran homeworld, Ambassador Kelran worked in his garden, tending to flowers that had bloomed in his family's compound for 6 centuries. Gardening helped him think, helped him process the guilt that still weighed on him. He'd been part of the system that nearly exterminated humanity. He'd voted yes on the preliminary evaluation, believing that young aggressive species needed to be controlled. He'd been wrong, and that wrongness had almost cost billions of lives. But he'd also helped stop Admiral Corvin. He'd given the humans the codes to disable the Stellar Purge platforms. He'd released Lieutenant Park and given him a ship, knowing Park would try to stop the attack even if it cost his life. Park visited Kelron's garden every few months. The human had been offered a military promotion and a comfortable position, but he'd turned them down to become a writer instead. His book, The War We Chose, examined the moral complexity of the conflict from both human and Concordat perspectives. It was required reading at the Institute for Interspecies Understanding and at military academies across the galaxy. "Ambassador," Park called out, walking through the garden gate. "Your flowers look good this year." "James," Kelran greeted him warmly. They'd become genuine friends over the years, bonded by the crisis they'd survived together. "I was just thinking about you. Tell me, do humans still blame us? The Concordat species?" Park considered the question while admiring a blue flower. "Some do. There are humans who think we should have kept fighting, conquered more territory, made the Concordat pay more severely. But most people are just relieved the war is over. They're too busy living their lives to hold grudges. And you?" "I blame the system, not the people," Park said. The juvenile species protocol was the problem, not the individual Concordat members who believed in it. Most of you genuinely thought you were protecting the galaxy. You were wrong, but you weren't evil. They sat together in the garden, human and alien, talking about philosophy and the nature of forgiveness. Captain Vasquez called the Galactic Assembly to order. The chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds, all waiting to address the day's agenda. But one item had everyone's attention. "We've detected a new species achieving faster than light travel," Elena announced. "The Kree, from a system in the Sagittarius Arm. They've successfully completed their first interstellar flight and are beginning to explore their local star cluster." The chamber erupted in discussion. A new species, a new test of whether the galaxy had truly learned from the war. Representative Shalek of the Viric stood. The old Concordat would have immediately deployed monitoring stations and begun evaluation procedures. "What does this new assembly propose?" Species from across the galaxy offered suggestions. Some wanted caution, careful observation before contact. Others wanted immediate diplomatic outreach. The Defensive League representatives argued for establishing clear boundaries. The Free Stars Pact wanted to ignore the Kree entirely and let them develop on their own. Elena listened to all perspectives, then stood. 5 years ago, the galaxy tried to judge humanity before meeting us. You decided we were dangerous based on observations and assumptions. You were going to exterminate us to protect yourselves from a threat we hadn't actually made yet. The chamber fell silent. That fear almost destroyed everything, Elena continued. Multiple civilizations nearly ended because you couldn't accept that different doesn't mean dangerous. So here's what Earth proposes for the Kree. We contact them openly and honestly. We introduce ourselves as neighbors, not judges. We offer help if they want it, space if they don't. We show them the galaxy we're building together, not the galaxy of fear we inherited. She looked around the chamber. And if they turn out to be dangerous? If they attack us or threaten others? Then we deal with that when it happens, based on their actual actions rather than our fears. We be better than the Concordat was to us. Ambassador Krell of the Vorgash, one of the few original Concordat members still actively involved, stood up. And if they turn out like humans did? Aggressive, willing to strike first? Then we'll negotiate, Elena said simply. We'll try to understand why they're afraid, what they need to feel secure. We'll offer them the thing the old Concordat never offered us, a genuine chance at peace. She paused. And if negotiation fails, if violence becomes inevitable, then we fight. But fighting will be the last option, not the first. The vote was close, but it passed. The Galactic Assembly would contact the Kree openly and peacefully. Admiral Webb watched the vote from his retirement home on Mars. He felt something loosen in his chest, a tension he'd carried for 5 years. Maybe the galaxy really was learning. Sarah Chen watched the same broadcast in her office. She immediately began planning first contact protocols, cultural exchange programs, diplomatic training for the team that would greet the Kree. There was so much work to do, so many ways it could go wrong. But for the first time since before the war, she felt genuinely hopeful. On Earth, monuments stood in memory of those who died in the war. 3,000 soldiers and crew members lost in combat, 20,000 civilians killed in the few Concordat retaliatory strikes that had succeeded. Every name was carved in stone, every face remembered in holographic displays that told their stories. But next to those monuments stood others. Memorials to the 37 species exterminated under the Juvenile Species Protocol.